Hey there, this is Raw Power. In this video I'm going to show you how to build my dual Wield Axe Shocker Scion, which is a build I've been investing on for Tournament League on Path of Exile. I started a thread for this build on the Scion forums, in the official forum, so if you have any comments or questions you can communicate there. And in this video I'm going to show you step by step how I built this tree and how you can level with this tree and play your character up to endgame with it. So to start, we start Scion, of course, and then we get melee damage, Path of the Water, until we get the life wheel. This is the famous life wheel in the Scion tree. These melee damage nodes, they are not really that good. If you look at the rest of the tree, there are other nodes which are better than them, but we need those because we need the Scion start. So you reach the life wheel, and your first priority from this point on is to get Resolute Technique. We don't go for accuracy or critical strikes, we don't allocate any dexterity points in this build, so Resolute Technique is really important because then we don't have to worry about accuracy or hitting or anything. As you level up, you will notice you will start hitting less and less, so the sooner you get Resolute Technique, the better. Small point here, when I first designed this build, I went to this down part here. I went down after the life wheel because I thought I would actually allocate Vol Pact for this build, but I'm now level 75 and I've realized Vol Pact is not really going to be of use for this build because we'll probably never reach enough life leech from physical damage to apply Vol Pact effectively. So instead of going down here, just go up, complete the life wheel at this up part. Of course, you can get Constitution before you move on to Resolute Technique because Constitution is of course a very good life node. And then you reach Resolute Technique. So that was your first priority for the build. Now you can never miss. After that, since we are on this path anyway, I recommend you get Unrelenting. It's a very effective life cluster because in total it gives you 20%. And it also gives you 19% reduced mana cost of skills in total, and this can help while leveling also, decreasing the mana cost of your skills. After that, you have already got a lot of life here from the life wheel and from Unrelenting, but you haven't got any physical damage yet, so I recommend you go for Cleaving. This cluster here on the top part of this circle is the best possible increase for your physical damage with axes in this build because these nodes give 15% and then Cleaving, the notable passive, gives 35%. That's a big increase and it's going to help while leveling because you can kill stuff faster and then level faster. So at this point, you want to start thinking about your links. So the links we use for this build are, we use the main skills of Cleave and Dual Strike, and we support them with the same 3 support gems, which are melee physical damage, multi-strike, and physical to lightning. So we use physical to lightning because we want to make use of the high physical damage of axes and convert that into lightning damage so we can shock our enemies. However, we have taken the Resolute Technique keystone, which means you cannot deal critical strikes, which is the common source of shocking with lightning damage. So we must go for shock gens. So since we have already allocated enough life and physical damage to start, we're going to leave the Marauder tree for a little bit and we're going to change side, and this is why we need the Scion start, because right now we're going to start allocating points towards the opposite side of the tree. So first of all, you get these attack speed nodes here, and when you finish that, you keep allocating these intelligence nodes until you reach static blows on the opposite side of the tree. So static blows is important, is another key aspect of this tree because the entire cluster gives you 15% chance to shock and some extra lightning damage and also increased shock duration on enemies, 50%. So that's very important to help us shock enemies consistently. You now have 15% chance to shock. When you get a 5 link for your Cleave, you should link, your 5th gem should be Elemental Proliferation. So you can make use of your 15 chances to shock to consistently shock your enemies. So right now we have already finished this key part of the tree, which is to reach static blows. So we can leave this part of the tree and never touch it anymore, and we can go back to the Marauder side. where things are more interesting and you get more damage and life. So at this point, if you look at the Marauder tree, you have the basics, life and physical damage. So your next priority should be Unwavering Stance. Cannot evade enemy attacks and cannot be stunned. We focus on armor gear, we go for pure armor in this build, so it doesn't matter that we cannot evade because we don't have high evasion anyway, and we never get any dexterity anyway. And even though we have a lot of life, it's still useful to get Unwavering Stance. A lot of life prevents us from getting stunned a lot, but there are attacks that will always stun us, such as shield charges, and of course incredible amounts of damage will still stun us. So if you get Unwavering Stance, you cannot be stunned ever. So that's a good thing. So you can allocate Barbarism first on the way to Unwavering Stance, which is going to give you extra life and extra resists, and then you allocate Unwavering Stance. So we have now allocated the 2 keystones that are necessary for the build. After Unwavering Stance, since we are reaching this bottom part of the tree, I recommend you get this cluster here, Bloodless. It's a good life cluster. It gives you 5% on these nodes, which is a good average, and then 8% on the notable, and enemies cannot leech life from you. So this is good because sometimes you find enemies who can leech life, and if they cannot leech life from you, you can deal with them faster. Also, we are approaching the bottom of the tree, which is good because we are getting ready to allocate Splitting Strikes later on. Splitting Strikes is another very good notable passive here because it gives us 25% increased physical damage and 6% increased attack speed with axes. So that's another very big increase in our DPS. Also, these 2 nodes here on the way to Splitting Strikes, they give us a little bit of armor, so I like the fact that they are both offensive and defensive at the same time. But we are not going to allocate this cluster right now. We actually leave that for the end game. I'm actually at level 75 and I have not allocated Splitting Strikes yet. I will do this on the next levels, but it's good because we are ready to take it when it's time. So after that, I recommend you start going towards the Templar tree, using this side of the tree. And we go to the Templar tree mainly because there are many effective life nodes, and also because we have the Elementalist passive. So in the way to Elementalist, we get Devotion and some very effective life nodes, and Elementalists gives us a final 5% chance to shock. So together with Static Blows up there, it gives us a total of 20 chance to shock, which is consistent, and it's enough for this build. And after that, since you're here anyway, you can get Discipline and Training for more extra life. It's one of the best life nodes in the tree. And at this point I also got Purity of Flesh up here, because this entire cluster gives you 20% chaos resistance, and chaos resistance can be really annoying in the end game, so I get that, and extra life of course. At this point you're probably at Merciless difficulty, and maybe you are struggling with capping your resists. So if this is the case, you can, if you want to, you can allocate the Diamond Skin cluster down here on the Marauder tree. This cluster is not part of our final build because we get elemental resistances from our gear. But if you still haven't kept your resistances, you can get this cluster temporarily and then remove it later on. Then after that, we have spent 77 skill points, so we are probably approaching the end of Merciless difficulty. We are in our early level 60s or something like that. And as we approach level 69, the reduced mana support gem becomes available at level 20. So reduced mana at level 20 is going to support our auras for this build. I explained a little bit about the auras on my build guide on the forums, but we use basically Wrath, Herald of Thunder, and Determination. So with our auras linked to reduced mana at level 20 and combining that with this node here, reduced mana reservation 4%, you can reserve 99% of your mana, exactly 99, which leaves you with 1% mana to cast all of your skills. And in my build I explain how I do that. We rely on reduced mana cost of skills and also special rings from Irion, the lore master, to be able to use all of our skills using only a mana pool of 1% of our mana. So as you approach level 69, you want to get this node here, 4% reduced mana reserved. Once you get all that, it's basically pretty much increase health, increase life, and increase physical damage. At this point, I got Juggernaut. I recommend Juggernaut because it gives you a good amount of life and armor. And the notable Juggernaut also gives you 20% increased life recovery from flasks, which is very useful. You can also start going for these Marauder notables here for physical damage. They're all very good because they give you a very good mix of physical damage and attack speed, so that increases our DPS considerably. When you get these nodes, you'll probably notice that your DPS is going to scale a lot. And then you can get Heart of the Warrior for that extra life. After that, I recommend you get Unwielding for some extra armor. Unwielding is going to give us 30% increased armor, and you take 20% reduced extra damage from critical strikes. So that's very interesting investment to be able to sustain more damage. And after Unwielding, this is more or less the place where I am right now on my build at level 75. And after I get Unwielding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and finally get Splitting Strikes. So you allocate those strength nodes and you allocate Splitting Strikes using these two nodes here. Because this other node gives you accuracy, but you don't need accuracy because we already have Resolute Technique. So you get these two, which are very good, give you armor and physical, and Splitting Strikes, which should be another considerable DPS boost. And once you're finished getting Splitting Strikes, you have now allocated all the increased physical damage nodes you will get from the tree. Splitting Strikes, Cleaving, Strong Arm, Born to Fight, and the other nodes related to those. So after you get all of these notables, all of these clusters, you are the only DPS increase you will get is if you get more strength or if you upgrade your gear. At this point, we wanna basically just start getting other utility nodes and more life. If you ever get a 6-link, to support your 6-link, you're gonna have to allocate Righteous Degree for reduced mana cost, and also Dynamo for reduced mana cost. So you get all of the clusters from the tree that have reduced mana cost: the Unrelenting cluster, Righteous Decree cluster, and Dynamo cluster. And this should enable you to support your 6-link cleave. And then you can start finishing off getting the other life nodes that you still get. You can close the life wheel. You can get this one life node here on the Marauder tree. You can get these two here on the Templar tree. And if you want, you can improve the AoE of your cleave by getting Amplify in the Templar tree. So if you get all these nodes here on the Amplify cluster, you get 20% increased radius of your areas to improve your cleave. And if you do that, then I recommend you get Retribution and you spec out of this elemental damage node here, because Retribution is obviously much better than this elemental damage. And then that's it, pretty much. We have spent 114 points. That's already over level 90. If you ever reach level 100, you could maybe go to Warrior's Blood and get more life and armor, something like that. But that's pretty much it for the build, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you like it.